What a head, son! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my initial reaction to the news that just dropped a couple of minutes ago about double game week 22. So I'm recording this video during my lunch break, going to try and edit it as well. So this video might be a little bit shorter than usual, but I'll still be trying to give you guys as much information as possible. So what I will be doing in this video is I'm going to start off by looking at the double game week fixtures, also looking at the single game week fixtures, because just remember, there are some teams with one fixture only. We don't necessarily just have to focus on the double game week players. And then to finalize the video, I'll be discussing my chip strategy and talking especially about the free hit. Now this announcement did come earlier than expected. I think most people were thinking that it'll come next week, but what does the Prem do? They drop it today when the news has been quite slow and they've roped us straight back in to focusing on FPL. So hopefully this video gives you some more clarity on what's been announced, and let's get straight into it. So sit back, relax, and let's get right into the video. So as I mentioned, there have been 4 double game week 22 fixtures added to the upcoming game week. It's going to be Burnley vs Watford, Brighton vs Chelsea, and Leicester vs Spurs, and then finally Brentford vs Man United. So 4 fixtures, 8 double game week teams that we're going to be focusing on, and I'll be discussing them in the upcoming game week in quite a lot of depth. But what this does confirm for us is that Ben Crellin was right about the double game week 22, so shout out to him for getting that accurate yet again. The interesting thing though is that I don't exactly know if these are the last double game week fixtures that could happen. I mean, just think about a team like an Everton. We're rumored to potentially have 2 doubles in a row, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to be going ahead. So as of now, these are the 4 fixtures going ahead. So maybe some get added, some get taken away, but as of now, I'm going to prepare what's in front of us. Just stay tuned to Twitter, especially Ben Crellin, but I will be retweeting or quoting whatever news does come about, so you can follow me as well. But as I said, shout out to Ben Crellin for getting this right, and hopefully the upcoming doubles will be quite profitable. So before we get an in-depth look at the fixtures, I wanted to just give you guys some notice about a little bit of a disclaimer that the Prem did put in their article. So what they said was, please note that if any of these teams' FA Cup third round matches this weekend are postponed, their Premier League fixtures below will be affected. So what they're kind of saying there is that if Chelsea's kind of FA Cup third round game gets postponed due to maybe an outbreak at their opposition or their own training camp, the double game week fixtures will be altered, similar to what happened with Liverpool vs Arsenal. So if you guys don't know, the Liverpool game, the first round fixture in that Carabao Cup was actually postponed, and therefore it was moved to the double game week 22 midweek, and therefore Liverpool no longer have a double game week. So what they're kind of saying here is that if the FA Cup games that are scheduled for this weekend are postponed, that fixture will be moved to the double game week midweek of game week 22, and therefore that team will no longer have a double. So let's kind of hope that no FA Cup games are postponed, but I still would recommend you guys holding off on those transfers for as long as possible, because if these FA Cup games are postponed, maybe even a double game week 22 game is postponed, that's going to negatively affect those transfers that you brought in. But it's not all doom and gloom. We still can prepare our kind of plans. Just make sure that you're not too finalized on them, because at the current stage, anything can change in FPL. So now going on to the double game week 22 fixtures. Before we look on the double, I want to look at the single game week fixtures, because just remember, we don't necessarily have to just focus on those double game week players. We still have some single game week players with really strong fixtures. There are 3 teams that I can kind of think of that a lot of us do own these options, and that's Liverpool, West Ham, and then Everton. So starting off with West Ham, they have a relatively good game at home against a Leeds side that have been struggling defensively this season. So I mean, those players could actually provide some nice assets, even though they only have a single game week. Then the Liverpool options, a Jota, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Basically everyone probably watching this video owns those 2 assets with Mo Salah. If you sold Mo Salah a couple of game weeks ago or this week, he's definitely going to be on the way out. So those 2 options are mainstay. Jota, Trent, relatively good game at home against Brentford, a side that also recently have been struggling defensively. And I mean, the Liverpool side is just so strong. Even without Salah and Mane, I do still think they're going to put a couple goals past Brentford. So that's yet another single game week that looks quite strong, and we do own those assets. And the final one's going to be Norwich against Everton. So Everton right now having a double game week 21 has not completed yet, and against a Norwich side that are the worst side in the Prem, I don't think there's any questions about that. Defensively, offensively, everything in between. So that game is going to be quite strong for those Everton assets, and a lot of us do own them because we brought them in for double game week 21, expecting a potential double game week 22 as well. Now here and there are other assets that you guys can focus on. Man City played Chelsea, which is probably one of those games that you guys don't want to own those assets in. Unfortunately for those Man City assets of Foden and Cancelo, don't you know how this game could go? But I mean, a Cancelo could always get a clean sheet with how strong Man City have been defensively. So just remember that even though it is a double game week, we kind of tunnel vision with double game weeks. We just want to focus on them. There are some single game week teams that have good fixtures that we already do own, and that might sway you away from using the free hit. But we'll be discussing that at the end of the video. But now going on to the double game week 22 fixtures, and as I mentioned, it's not all doom and gloom here. We finally have a very nice double game week coming up. Now, is it actually that nice of a double game week? You guys can drop it in the comments down below what you think of the fixtures. I'll be giving you guys my initial reaction here, and spoiler alert, I actually think these fixtures are quite avoidable, and you don't have to necessarily use the free hit if you don't have too many of these options. So starting off, we're going to be going in alphabetical order here, starting on the left hand side. And before we get into that, I have highlighted the fixtures with a red, white, or kind of a green indication. Now, these are my own perspective of the fixtures. You guys might argue that Aston Villa away for United is a green fixture. I think it's more of a kind of meh fixture, and that's why it is white here. But red fixtures are bad ones, green ones are obviously good ones, and then white ones are kind of in between. But I did these very initially, so don't take them too seriously, but I wanted to just kind of put graphically what I think of the fixtures on the screen. So let's start off with Brentford at the top left there. Liverpool, Man United at home. Definitely not the best double game week at 22 fixtures. I think probably the worst fixtures on paper, and therefore I wouldn't really recommend getting any of these Brentford assets in. And if you do own them, I guess you can keep them, but as I mentioned, wouldn't be bringing them in because these fixtures look quite tough on paper. Brighton then have Crystal Palace at home and then Chelsea at home. So Chelsea definitely a kind of red fixture there, but Crystal Palace at home, relatively green fixture in my opinion. But Brighton kind of always struggle offensively. Defensively, they seem quite strong. So if you guys do own a Sanchez, a Lamptey, although there might be some rotation for Lamptey, I think you still stick with those defensive options. Burnley up next with a pretty good double game week, to be honest. Leicester at home, a side that have been quite hit or miss, but then welcoming Watford at home, definitely one of the best fixtures in the Prem at the current moment. So Chris Wood, maybe a Loughton, a Taylor, those sort of options could be quite good value for money, but I still think I would steer clear from Burnley unless you guys are going to use the free hit. Chelsea then start off with probably the worst fixture in the Prem at the moment, Man City away. I'm not having too much faith in these Chelsea assets, especially a side that haven't really picked up the best of form recently, but maybe they can rebound in game week 22, and definitely traveling in that second fixture to Brighton, they could get some points there. I think with the Chelsea assets though, if you guys have them, keep them, but if you don't, I don't think I would be bringing them in because I don't really favor this double game week too much for the Chelsea side of things. But now moving on to the next half of the teams, we've got Leicester against Burnley away and then Spurs at home. Spurs at home is a tough game to kind of call. I've listed it as an average fixture, but I think it's more on the side of a bad fixture because you're probably going to favor more of the attacking options from Leicester, and I don't favor that because Conte's defense seems quite solid. Burnley away though, definitely a game I'll be targeting, and I can see why people want to bring in Maddison and a Vardy, maybe even a Tielemans, a Harvey Barnes, that sort of thing if he's managed to come back from injury. So I can understand the Leicester side of things, as the fixtures for me are kind of average. But now traveling to the red side of Manchester, Aston Villa away and Brentford away. I think I prefer the Brentford game to the Aston Villa game, as Stevie G's Aston Villa are also a little bit hit or miss at the current moment, but Brentford have been struggling over the past few game weeks. But United overall have not been in great form, and that's why if you guys don't own them, it's a tough decision whether to bring them in or not, because the fixtures on paper do actually look quite strong. We then go to Spurs, who have Arsenal at home and then Leicester away. Tough fixtures on paper, I think, but both these two teams are also a little bit hit or miss. Arsenal's offense have actually been quite strong this season, including that midfield department with a lot of youth in those ranks. So I guess defensively and offensively, that Arsenal game is quite tough to call, but yet again, it is a North London derby where anything can actually happen. But then Leicester away, a side that defensively haven't been that strong, so maybe a Sonic Kane could be options you guys look at, but I think these fixtures are a little bit tough to call, and therefore I don't know if I'll be bringing in too many Spurs assets. But then finally, going on to the Watford assets, Newcastle away and Burnley away, the best fixtures of double game week 22 in my opinion. At least I think Watford have the best double. Unfortunately, their form has also been a little bit in the grey area at the current moment. Defensively, don't really look at too many of their options, unless you guys do own Bachmann or Ben Foster, and they play both kind of doubles. But I guess Josh King and Dennis are where the value is going to be at for this Watford attack, with great fixtures against Newcastle and Burnley coming up. A little bit annoying that it is 2 away games. I think at least one home game would have made this a little bit more attractive, but I guess Watford have been quite strong from an attacking point of view. So Josh King, Dennis, I think are all options that you should be looking at. So as I mentioned, let me know in the comments down below what's your reaction on this double game week 22 announcement. As I mentioned earlier on, I don't really think it's the best double. I think I might avoid using the free hit, but let's talk about that right now. So I guess the big question, the final question of this video is, should you be using any chips? I don't think a bench boost is kind of notable in this game week, but I definitely think if you guys haven't used your second or your first free hit, I think this could potentially be a good free hit week. In terms of my own team, I've already used the free hit in game week 19 if memory serves me right, so I don't think I'll be using the free hit again in double game week 22 because the fixtures in my opinion don't look that strong. But if you guys still own both free hits, I can understand the urge to wanting to use it, but I just don't know. I think you can get away with not using it this week because the likes of West Ham, Liverpool and Everton still have a strong single game week. I mean, what are you guys going to kind of do on a free hit? Are you going to double up or triple up on Watford and Burnley because they have great fixtures? I don't really think so. I think you'll still stick with some of those single game week players, and that's why I say the free hit this week might not be that attractive. But if you guys want to use it, a free hit is always a kind of a team dependent, so it's very situational, and I can understand if you want to go for it. But that's basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for more content coming up. Super excited about the video I will be releasing next. Actually, I was going to release it today, but because of this news dropping, I thought I would discuss the double game week as soon as possible. But hopefully you guys have a safe break, and I'll see you with the videos coming up shortly. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.